Welcome back to the Gut 360 podcast, your weekly dose of Monday morning inspiration to help you transform your mind, body, and gut. I'm your host, Eli Brecher, a registered nutritionist, and today I'm sitting down with Jess Shand to talk all about what to eat for hormone health, the link between gut health and hormones, and how nutrition can support with PMS, promote a healthy cycle. So put the kettle on, get cozy, because this is going to be packed with valuable tips. Jess Shand is one of the UK's leading women's health and hormone specialists, a registered naturopathic nutritionist, and the author of the Hormone Balance Handbook. She's renowned for redefining hormone balance through whole body nourishment, targeted daily habits, and an evidence-based functional food philosophy to female health optimization. Jess is passionate about bridging the gap between nutritional science and what women can realistically integrate into daily life. Welcome, Jess, to the Gut 360 podcast.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation.
I'm so excited for our conversation too. Now, Jess, I know you're known for redefining hormone balance for modern women. So what exactly does optimal hormone health actually mean to you beyond the textbook definition?
Okay, so first things first, I feel like the word optimal gets thrown around so much, especially lately. But to me personally, and in my clinical work and everything that I put out into the world, feeling optimal and optimal hormonal health means quite literally feeling well. And I think feeling well feels like kind of a basic term, but to me, feeling well is everything. I feel like it's really underrated. And what does feeling well mean? It means feeling at home in your body. It means feeling balanced and feeling like you can get through life with ease. And obviously, you know, when we have cycles and our hormones are fluctuating, we're going to feel different at different points of the month. But it's that general feeling of feeling well. And so a good examples would be waking up in the morning and feeling energized and ready for the day instead of feeling sluggish and fatigued, for example. It's feeling like you can get through the day without, you know, severely craving sugar or needing something to give you that kind of pick me up. So it's that it's that feeling of balance and resilience.
I love that idea of feeling at home in our body. I think that is so, so important. And you've spoken openly about your own experiences with amenorrhea, hypothyroidism, and fertility challenges. So how did living through those challenges shape the work that you do today?
It shaped the work that I do today in the sense that it gave me a real life kind of lens, I guess, to be able to see firsthand what, you know, to feel firsthand what it actually is like in reality to be having these challenges and to be navigating things and to be implementing things, integrating things into my life in a realistic way. And I feel like, you know, we can know all of the ins and outs of the you know, the science of hormones, but I think having that lived experience and being able to really connect with women in that sense of, you know, having actually been through it yourself, it gives you a completely different perspective. And I feel like, yeah, it gives that real, I guess, just that real life experience that you can kind of share and work together on.
Yeah, I think it makes such a difference when you can genuinely relate to your clients. I know I feel the same with gut health. I came into this work through my own journey living with Crohn's since I was 8. And so when I see clients with gut issues, they know that I've been in their shoes. And I'm sure it's the same for you, that you can truly feel that compassion, feel that empathy as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just brings a whole different way of working with your client. You just connect on such a deeper level. And yeah, as I say, for me, it's all about being able to integrate things realistically. I see so many things online, so many experts online, influencers, health coaches giving out all of this advice and 10-step routines and all of these things. And whilst, you know, it sounds amazing and it would be amazing to be able to do all of those things, in reality, you know, we all have such busy lives and many of us have families and lots of things going on. And I feel like being able to integrate, you know, things in a realistic way that actually moves the needle in your health is everything, because there's no point having this whole routine or protocol that on paper looks incredible, but in reality, you're not able to actually, you know, do, and for it to be sustainable. And I think that everything in health, in the health space and when thinking about hormone changes, it has to be sustainable to actually work.
100%. I always say I could give my clients all the tools in the toolbox, but if they're not actually implementing the plan, what's the point if it's not sustainable, if it's not accessible and something that they feel confident approaching and putting into practice? So another thing I really like about your philosophy is the idea that symptoms are communication rather than dysfunction, rather than something going wrong. It's our body trying to communicate with us. So how does that belief change the way that women approach their health?
It changes absolutely everything, because when you understand that symptoms are a way of your body talking to you, communicating with you, it literally changes how you approach your daily habits, how you approach how you nourish your body, your whole kind of like why behind the reasoning of, wanting to optimize your health or change your health. Because I think that has been the missing piece of the puzzle. Like even these days, even with all the information we have available to us, and there is so much available to us, so much free information, I still feel like the missing link, and the thing that I am so excited about changing and about, in everything that I do, is literally rooted in this working with your body and understanding that symptoms are, is not something to just like put a plaster over or, do this and do that and you won't have. It's like you literally need to get to the root cause of it. What is actually causing that symptom? And sometimes it can be an array of symptoms. And sometimes I have clients come to me and they come to me with digestive issues, for example, but actually there's so much going on with their hormones that it's like that's why it's so important to actually get to the root, get to the crux of it. Like what is actually happening and how is that, and how has that played out? And often that is going right back, as you all know, working with clients, is going right back and kind of unpacking it and figuring out like, when did things change? At what point did the symptom occur and what happened around that time? And quite often it can be related also to not even just nutrition, but some kind of personal trauma in your life, and you're holding it in your body, and then it has that knock-on effect. So yeah, symptoms to me are, the way that I think about symptoms is that it's literally your body asking you, telling you something, asking you something. And sometimes that can be so subtle, it can be like a whisper, and it's quite easy to kind of ignore that because you can just get through and you power through. And I think as women, we are designed by default to be able to be very, very good at just getting, powering through and doing all of the things. But I think it's so important to, when something changes, for you to really kind of like acknowledge it and lean into the why behind it and getting to that root cause. And as I said, like sometimes it can be a subtle voice or a subtle whisper in your body, which might show up as, changes in bowel movements. It might show up in changes in energy, even things like libido, which I feel like people don't talk about a lot. But that again is another symptom. It's another, imbalance or way of your body kind of like telling you something. But sometimes the noise can be really loud, and sometimes it's like the symptom is literally shouting at you. And that is often at the point where, clients come to practitioners like us because they're like, okay, I can't continue like this. I cannot ignore it any longer. But I think that we need to rewrite the narrative of it and be like, as soon as things change and everything is about patterns, like it's not going to be like, okay, this week this happened and that hasn't happened before, so I need to now, change everything. It's not about that, but it's more like noticing the patterns. And then when they're kind of cropping up and kind of like working back, like what is there anything that has changed in my nutrition or in the way that I'm taking care of myself? And so I think that it's about, just really tuning into our bodies and listening to what our bodies are telling us, and just being, having that real deep connection with ourselves, I think is just the most invaluable thing we can do.
It really is so important to learn how to listen to our bodies, listen to the signs that our bodies are sending us, rather than waiting for things to completely spiral out of control before even acknowledging that there's a real issue and seeking out help. So I could not agree more. Now, I love the tips that you share on Instagram and the way that you bridge functional nutrition and real life in a way that actually feels achievable. So why do you think so many women really struggle to translate that health advice into sustainable habits?
I love this question. I think the main issue that people cannot translate tips into real life and actually feel the results and the changes that they're looking for is because a lot of the advice given is either too extreme, or you're taking advice from someone who's in a completely different season of life to you. And I think that then it's completely obsolete. Like there's no point following, like for example, for me, there's no point me following the advice of like a 20-year-old who has got so much free time and different, like a completely different routine and way of life and different priorities and different responsibilities. So I feel like that is quite a key issue in this day and age, in like a, in this like influencer world that we're living in, where we do see so many bits of advice flying around. I feel like it has to relate to us in the season that we're in. And I think that sometimes the advice is do more, add more, buy this, buy that, take this supplement, take that supplement. And basically like throwing the kitchen sink at the situation without actually stripping it back, going back to basics, doing what I said just a minute ago, and like, tuning into what your body's telling you. And it can sound a bit like fluffy and not, I think people want quick fixes. We're in this world where if we want it, we want it right now, like Amazon deliveries, we get it immediately or the next day or even sometimes the same day. And I think that we're so used to living and operating in that way that even with our health, we kind of have this expectation of like, okay, if something's not working, what? I want to do something about it now. So it's quite easy to order supplements online or to take the advice of someone who is quite aspirational, because you're like, okay, well, she's got it sorted. And, none of us have it sorted. We just have different ways of being able to deal with things or cope with things, or different ways of running our lives, right? So I feel like it has to work with the season that you're in. It cannot be too extreme. And we have to actually get to the root of the problem. So often that means stripping it back and taking baby steps forward, taking very kind of powerful but going back to basic steps, essentially, and working and building up rather than doing too much too quickly, because then that is often quite like so adding another stress and, adding to your stress load. And then the body sometimes then completely, will shut down, not completely shut down, but won't work as effectively as it can and it should, because you're doing too much, you're adding too much in. And then it's like, whoa, hang on a sec, we're going to put the brakes on. And actually, things like cycles and reproductive health and energy and cortisol, all of these areas, you're just asking too much of the body. And I think that it is really important to just kind of like go back to basics, strip it back, and then take very intentional steps forward.
I couldn't agree more. I think of health like a pyramid, and if we don't nail those foundations of the pyramid, then we can't start to build upwards. And sometimes we just try and do everything all at once. So yeah, definitely let's strip it back to basics. I was having a stalk of your Instagram this morning, and you posted this delicious video of a week of hormone healthy meals, or 7 days of hormone healthy meals. So can you talk us through what makes those meals so hormone supportive? It doesn't need to be the specific meals that you posted in the reel today, but
yeah,
how do we eat for hormone health?
So the way we eat for hormone health is, when we think about the plate, and obviously this doesn't have to be like, a perfect science. I feel like sometimes even that, the concept of like, it has to be this amount of this, or 30 grams of this, or 10 of these, or it's more about actually thinking about the whole plate. Like, we hear so much about fiber, we're hearing a lot about fiber maxing, which I'm all here for, because I think that fiber is so important. But then a couple of months ago, it was all about protein, and it's all about something. So I feel like what we need to do is kind of like drown out that noise and know that all of those, all of the parts of the plate are so important. So you think about roughly a quarter of your plate, and actually think about it like the size of your fist, because the size of your fist is a really good indication to how much protein that you need as like an individual, because it's like, tailored to you. So that's a really good way of thinking about it. So think about a quarter of the plate being a complete protein source. So whether that's animal or plant protein, or a combination of the two. And then think about half of the plate being fiber sources. And so we're thinking about lentils and beans and whole grains, or sometimes a mix of those different foods, and root vegetables. And then you're thinking about healthy fats as well. And you're thinking about the overall plate being like this balance of, I like to think of it as PFF, protein, fiber, fats, and complex carbs comes into the fiber section of that. And I think that's a really easy way to think, like PFF. Everyone can remember PFF. So when you're out and about and you're making choices, like what can I buy on the go, which I think a lot of people really struggle with, because there's so many options, and actually it's quite difficult to find foods that actually support you and that also taste delicious. So I think,
give us a few examples maybe for those PFS. So where can people actually start? Where can they get their P, protein, F for healthy fats, and F for fiber?
So I think it's like when you're looking at a packet, so it's like a salad or or like a nourish bowl type thing, which I'm seeing more and more of. M&S are actually doing this really good nutrient dense way, and you've probably seen it. And they're doing some really good like protein and fiber rich meals. It's literally just ensuring, like, in your head, be like, is there a protein source in there? And so you're thinking like chicken, tuna, tofu if you're plant-based. Or if not, a combination of different beans and lentils is a really good way to do that, and with whole grains as well. And you're thinking, so has it got a protein source? Has it got a fiber source in there? And a bit of fat. So even fats from like extra virgin olive oil, or olive oil is a really good one. Avocado, nuts and seeds. It's actually so much easier than people think to be able to create this balanced plate or this balanced bowl that is going to support your hormones, because essentially our hormones need this variety and this kind of like the building blocks that are going to really support them. So obviously protein is so important. We need the amino acids in order to produce our hormones, as again with fats as well. We need to support our blood sugar levels. We need to be able to feed our gut microbiome, stay regular. You know, our digestive health is so integral. Obviously, as you talk about all the time, it's so integral to keeping our hormones in balance. You know, actually having daily bowel movements is key, because if you're not eliminating properly, you're basically reabsorbing those used hormones, and then you're carrying it in your body, and then that can often lead to feeling low energy. It can worsen things like PMS. And so actually the fiber piece of the puzzle, which I'm so happy that everyone's talking about, is so key. But you do need the protein, and you do need the fats. But quite often I think that you can create this balanced plate quite effortlessly by eating a plant-rich diet and then adding in a few extras. And I think once you get into the routine of eating in that way and thinking about colours over calories, or like, you know, when you think about it like that, is so much easier. And so little things that everyone can do is maybe on like a Sunday afternoon, or like at the weekend at some point, chop up a load of different vegetables and season them, and literally just throw them in the oven. And then you could add some chickpeas to that. And then you've got this like diverse tray of different vegetables. And obviously you've got the protein from the chickpeas or the beans that you put in there as well. And then you could then add it to something like pre-cooked quinoa, for example, which is really quick and easy to just throw into a bowl. Or you could put it alongside some chicken or tuna or salmon or tofu as well. So I think having a base is really important. But I think, to your question, how do you create this balanced bowl? It's thinking about the PSFs and remembering that the complex carbs are within the fiber section of the plate as well. So yeah, think of it like, to clarify, half of the plate is going to be fiber, a quarter of the plate is going to be that complete protein, and then you're going to have your complex carbs, and then the fats kind of like weave in. So you could do olive oil, you could do a little bit of avocado, nuts and seeds, that kind of thing.
I love this. So many delicious ways that we can eat to nourish our hormones. You also talk a lot about working with the female biology rather than against it, which I love. So what are some of the most common ways women unknowingly sabotage their hormones?
Okay, so I feel like from the women that come to see me in my clinic, I think actually a lot of women are under eating and not realizing it. And so they're not actually providing their hormones with those raw materials, the building blocks that our hormones quite literally need in order to A, produce, and B, be in balance. And so I think that sometimes when someone has a goal of, I want to lose weight, for example, they will purposely undereat, but then the knock-on effect of that will then, it can show up in their cycles, it can show up in their skin, it can show up in their digestive health. I think that it's really key that we're eating enough, and that is something that is coming up a lot with my clients that come to me. I also feel like stress is the most problematic area when it comes to hormonal health and the way that it kind of manifests in so many different ways, because we cannot optimize a stressed out body. The body is always asking if we're safe. It's like it needs to be in this safe kind of state in order to function optimally, in order for our digestive system to work smoothly, in order for us to feel balanced physically and mentally. And we can't expect our hormones to be producing and be running smoothly like this symphony orchestra in the way that it works and how I describe it to be, if our body is in this like elevated state of stress, because the two things just don't go together. It impacts cortisol imbalances, it impacts insulin, it impacts ovulation. Even if we're not trying to have a baby, we need to be making sure that we are ovulating. It's such a indicator of the fact that we're producing enough progesterone. For example, we need progesterone in order and to be in balance with estrogen in order to have this healthy cycle, and in order for us not to have symptoms like PMS and everything else that goes with that and underneath that umbrella. So yeah, it's just so important that we are purposely not under eating and that we're really taking stress seriously. And with that, I suppose we could think about exercise as well, because sometimes I feel like women are under eating and over exercising, which is certainly the case in how I was treating my body unknowingly and not realizing the impact it was having on my body. And then years and years of living in that way and being so stressed out. And then when we came to wanting to have a baby, I realized I had PCOS, undiagnosed PCOS, and I had hypothyroidism. And so I was also highly anxious, and I was having a lot of panic attacks and things like that. And it's like, actually, when we stop and reevaluate and actually like tune inwards again, I know I've repeated it a few times already, but it's just changes everything, because you can actually understand and start piecing the puzzle together on like, okay, maybe the fact that I am not eating enough, I'm feeling hungry all the time, I'm feeling like I need 3 coffees a day and snacks, and I'm having this like battle every day with myself, is because I'm actually just not eating enough. And I think sometimes it can be quite simple. I feel like there's so much noise in the nutrition space, and it can feel quite heavy and overwhelming, and like we need to do all of these complex things or buy all of these special biohacking devices or whatever. And whilst those things can be really helpful and are nice to have, it all boils down to these foundational pillars that I'm just so passionate about. And it's like, I call them nature's biohacks, and it is using your meals as key opportunities in your day to really nourish your body, support your hormones, and really top yourself up. They're almost like self-care rituals, as well as the fact that you're actually eating food that your body needs. So it's like a two-way thing. Also making sure you're getting enough sleep, which I think is probably one of the hardest things in this day and age because of social media and just being on all the time, and so much to say on that topic. But also light exposure, so simple. Some of these things are just, all of these things really are simple, and they're simple in theory, but it's hard to do the simple things sometimes because of the way that we run our lives. And I think that that's why it is important to go back to the drawing board and understand what's happening for you personally as an individual, because then you can make decisions on which areas you're really going to prioritize as what's going to move the needle the most for you in that moment. And when I say in that moment, I mean in the short term, and then you can build things in. But sorry, that's a very long answer to your question, but there's just so much to say on that topic.
No, I love that. And I love thinking about that whole 360-degree approach, all the different pieces of the puzzle, sleep and exercise, but not too much exercise. And of course, nourishing ourselves and with food and looking after our stress levels, all so important. We know we should be consuming fermented foods for our gut health, but have you tried kimchi or sauerkraut? This episode is sponsored by The Cultured Collective, whose kimchi and sauerkraut are naturally fermented, unpasteurized, and tested for live cultures, as well as being a source of fiber. They've won awards for their flavor, so I'm not the only one who thinks they taste amazing. It's really easy to add a scoop of these real live foods to all kinds of meals. I love adding kimchi to the side of my eggs and topping avocado toast with sauerkraut. They're offering listeners of the Gut 360 podcast a huge 50% off their kimchi and sauerkraut, so head to the show notes to find out more. This episode is sponsored by IM8. I've recently added IM8 Daily Essentials into my morning routine, and I've noticed a real difference in my energy levels and my sleep. It's clinically proven, with 95% of people reporting more energy, 85% of people reporting better gut health, and 80% of people reporting better sleep quality. I love that it has 92 nutrient-rich ingredients, including gut-friendly probiotics and prebiotics, and I confidently recommend it to my clients. Use the code GUT360 for a special discount and free welcome code on your first order. I often tell my female clients that their cycle is like a monthly health report. So what does a healthy cycle actually look like throughout the whole 28 or average 28-day cycle? How should that look, and how should we expect to be feeling?
Okay, so obviously cycles are so unique to all of us. We're all going to have slightly different variations on how we feel. So much comes into play in terms of how it influences our reproductive hormones, in terms of like how stressed we are, going back to the stress factor again. how, if we're making sure we're not under eating, all of these things. But, quote unquote, an average cycle, we should actually feel pretty balanced throughout the whole cycle, but it's on a spectrum. So in the beginning, the follicular phase of the cycle, when estrogen is rising, it's almost like, I think of it in Chinese medicine terms, so these different seasons of the cycle. So that would be the springtime. So when we literally think about spring, like today, it's sunny, we're feeling more alive and like we want to get out and move our bodies and be more sociable. And that really kind of ramps up as we get towards the ovulatory phase of the cycle. And it's because we are biologically programmed to want to be, attracting a mate, so to speak. That's literally how it, in terms of like a chemical, biological kind of reasoning behind it. That is the reason we're designed to reproduce, right? So we feel more energized, our hormones are rising, and we're really feeling that. And so we're feeling really good, and that's a really good time to, move your body, challenge yourself, do like more sociable things, and put more sociable plans into your diary. And then we should ovulate. Everyone should ovulate, regardless to fertility goals or, wanting to have a baby, because when you ovulate, you produce enough progesterone, and we need progesterone. It's our calming hormone. It's good for keeping us focused, keeping us feeling really balanced. And it is so key that we're producing enough progesterone. I love talking about progesterone because a lot of women who are anxious or very, very stressed, and then we look at their cycles and they're not ovulating, it's like, okay, this is what I mean by going back to the root cause. I getting really like into the nitty gritty of what is going on in your body. And this is why it's really good to know, to be aware of your cervical mucus throughout the month, your change, the way that you feel throughout the month, and how you can really support your hormones as they change. So as we get into this luteal phase, hopefully you have ovulated. And if you haven't, I really recommend reading my book, The Hormone Balance Handbook, because there's a whole comprehensive guide on how to create balance naturally through food and through lifestyle practices that every single woman can do, no matter where they are in their life, whether they're at the start of their hormonal journey or towards the end. It's going to really be helpful. And this is a very simplified explanation. But as we get into that luteal phase, progesterone is rising, and then both of the hormones, estrogen and progesterone, will slightly rise towards the end of the cycle, where our period will start, and then they'll both dip. And then this is if a pregnancy hasn't occurred, and then then it's the menstrual phase. It's when our period starts, our period bleed, and this is a time of winter. So see it as like, this is the winter time. This is a time to really kind of nestle in, get cozy, really support rest, replenishment, iron-rich foods, fiber. You want to really support your body as much as possible, like warming foods that are much easier to digest, because digestion can be impaired during that time as well. So it's really important that we're just making these very, very, they're actually very simple tweaks. It's really important that we do that, because then we will feel the benefits of, we're not working against our bodies. Basically, it's a way of working with our bodies. And then the way that we'll benefit from that is we won't have these like huge peaks and troughs in terms of like what our hormones are doing and how that manifests in things like PMS, low mood, things like anxiety as well, and sleep and everything else.
I wish all women understood this and knew their cycle inside out.
I think
the phase of the cycle that most women tend to struggle with the most is the luteal phase. So generally like the week before they get their period, maybe the first and second day of their period too. But in that luteal phase, what should we be eating specifically, apart from general kind of warming, cozy foods? What nutrients do we need? What would you recommend to a woman who struggles with maybe a lot of PMS in the build up before getting her period, so in the end of the luteal phase?
As much as the luteal phase, and I'll definitely give you some examples, as much as it's so important to really support our bodies in that luteal phase, the message that I would love to get across is that it's so important that we think about the cycle as a whole. And so what you do throughout the beginning of the cycle is going to impact how you feel towards the end of the cycle. So that's why it is so important that we're doing the things, making those little tweaks and really supporting ourselves as much as possible during the luteal phase, when the progesterone becomes more dominant and it has this calming effect. We really want to support with things like root vegetables. So think of like the foods that you would naturally gravitate towards during the autumn time. So we're thinking about more root vegetables, we're thinking about warmer foods, we're thinking about complex carbohydrates, our nutrient demands are so much higher during the luteal phase, especially 7 days before our period, particularly. So during the first part of the luteal phase, so there's 2 parts of the luteal phase. So it's a 2-week time period, but think of the first part as like you're riding off the high of the estrogen that you've had in that ovulatory phase, and you're feeling more like yourself. As you get closer to your period, within this kind of like 5 to 7 day period, like time frame, that's when you really want to be ramping up this warmer food, really listening to your body. You don't have to literally stop doing everything you're doing, but it's just, again, it's just having this awareness. So yeah, root vegetables, fats are really important. So avocados, if you like avocados, I really encourage you to make that part of your, you know, your daily meals in that 7 days, or even that 5 days, because they're really high in magnesium as well, and vitamin E, as well as obviously being a good source of fiber and an amazing source of fats. And the fats are really going to help with hormone production. So if you are someone that has quite severe PMS symptoms and you're feeling quite low, and this could be a sign that you're not producing enough hormones, or you're not quite giving. PMS is basically like your body saying, like, you're not giving me enough of something, and it's our job to be able to kind of like give it those raw materials, those building blocks, and having enough fiber, protein, complex carbs as well, which again will go into the fiber section. You're going to be really supporting your body. And so yeah, I'd say those are the key ones. Also things like walnuts are really good. But yeah, overall you can create this quite effortless way of eating throughout the whole cycle, which actually keeps it really fun and exciting, because you're eating different types of foods, different energetics of foods, where you've got the warmer foods during the luteal and the menstrual phase, and then you've got these like more like fresher foods during the other phases of the cycle. So it kind of keeps things very seasonal as well, and it's a nice way to create balance. Another one as well, B vitamins as well, so like making sure you've got enough B vitamins, which really helps with energy production as well, because our energy can be quite low as well during that phase of time. So yeah, it's working with your body, it's making an effort to make these key little tweaks that you can. And also in my book, each recipe tells you when it's like optimal to eat it during your cycle. So there's loads of recipes for each phase of the cycle, and that hopefully makes it quite simple as well to follow.
That is really amazing. And I know that your book, the Hormone Balance Handbook, has helped thousands of women. So what was the core message that you really wanted readers to take away from that?
The core message, thank you, by the way. The core message is that I want women to know that it's in our control to make changes. It's literally in how we choose, and that is really key, how we decide, how we choose to nourish our bodies and take care of ourselves. It's not just about food, but food is a massive part of, how it influences our body, how it influences this delicate hormonal system, this symphony orchestra. It will make the biggest impact, and it's just about working with your body. I really want women to know that they don't need to suffer in silence, and they should not have to put up with symptoms that are common. I sometimes feel like when the symptoms are so common, like bloating or PMS, it's like thrown around all the time as if it's just like the norm, and like, oh yeah, I've got PMS, everyone's got PMS, or I'm bloated, everyone's bloated. And it's like, no. We should not have to put up with that or accept it. And I want my book to really help women to know that it's actually not that hard, and it's actually quite simple. You start working with your body, and almost like a Bible of like hormones, but in a way that is like, okay, I'm going to give you the science, the need to know. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that is nice to know, but we don't need to know it. And then we get so caught up in the science of hormones that we forget that the most important thing is being able to integrate it and implement it into our lives, so that we can actually feel the benefits of it and the results of it.
I love that. And I agree. Things like bloating, PMS are so normalized. Why are they so normalized? Like, I think it's so important that we help to show the women in our life that they don't need to feel constantly bloated, struggling with their cycle, questioning whether there's anything wrong with their hormones and their gut health, because we all deserve to feel our best. So I love that. Jess, we finish each episode with a quick fire round. So are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Amazing. What's one habit you see your clients struggle with the most?
One habit, I really think that I'm going to say two. So number one, I think it's drinking coffee first thing. And I know there's loads of chat about coffee, and like polyphenols can be really good for the gut, and it's really good for focus and all of these things. But from a hormonal perspective, I really feel like pouring caffeine into your body, whether it's from matcha, whether it's from coffee or tea, I feel like is not going to be the best thing, because we need to prime our bodies first thing. I think what we do first thing in the morning is so integral to how we feel throughout the day. And I think having a soft starting point and nourishing and soothing, so something like lemon and ginger, I make these immunity cubes, and which I'm always talking about because I think it's such a good thing to have in the freezer. You just pop it into a cup, put hot water, and you're good to go. And that is going to give you anti-inflammatories and hydration. It's like leveled up hydration. Or just like even a glass of like filtered water is going to be so good for you to replenish that lost hydration through sleep. So I feel like that is something that a lot of women do. And the other thing, so I'm not saying don't drink coffee. I'm just saying move it later. Just be smart about when you have it. So like prime your body with food and then bring the caffeine in. And then you've literally primed your body. Your cortisol is not going to be we need cortisol. We need it to be high in the morning. It's what gets us up and motivates us, right? But we don't want it to keep being elevated by things like caffeine and then not enough food. So that's a really important one. I would say number 2, I know you've only asked me for one, but I'll give you 2, is fasting. I feel like a lot of women still do fast. If you're a woman who is anxious, stressed, and you have any kind of like irregularities in your cycle or you're feeling off, trust me, fasting is going to make it 10 times worse. It's just a massive, it's a stressor on the body. And stress can be looked at in 2 ways, in 2 different lenses. Stress can be really good in some ways. Things like metabolism and, clearing out the dead cells and all of these things, which is obviously a really good point to fasting and a pro. But when it comes to a hormone balance and for me, it's all about creating safety and calm within the body. And then your hormones are going to pay you back tenfold. And fasting is just too much of a stressor. So yeah, I'd say fasting.
What's your favorite gut-friendly food?
That is a really difficult one. But do you know what? I would actually say my favorite gut-friendly food would be either chickpeas or butter beans or like nuts and seeds. So I make this, it's called the Gut Glow Sprinkle. And it's literally my seed cycling seeds, but then with chia seeds and like mixed seeds and nuts as well mixed into it. And I literally blitz it up and have it in this big pot, and I sprinkle it over my breakfast and my 5-year-old's breakfast as well. And I feel like that is the ultimate like gut nourisher that, again, if you make it easy for yourself, if you've got it there and you just sprinkle every morning, you're doing something really good for your gut. And I feel like that is I'd probably say that's my favorite gut feeding food.
I love nuts and seeds. What's your go-to breakfast on busy days?
I make these breakfast biscuits, and they're high fiber, like full of nuts and seeds, peanut butter. I put some protein powder in there, and that's a really good on-the-go, high fiber, blood sugar supportive breakfast that, again, is really good for you, really good for your kids, or even like an on-the-go snack. But yeah, I really do love that one.
Sounds delicious. What's one healthy habit you're still working on?
I'd say sleep. I feel like it's an ongoing one, but I've got so much better at going to bed earlier. And you know what's something that's really helped me? Have you heard of Brick?
Is that for your phone?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It has literally been, I've only had it for about 3 weeks, but I have I've like created a blocker from the hours of 8:30 p.m. and 7 o'clock in the morning. And so I can't go on WhatsApp or Instagram or emails. And I can't tell you how much that's helped me go to bed early and just like wind down and turn my brain off. And literally it's just made the biggest difference. So I really recommend it. But yeah, I'd say sleep is an ongoing one, because I feel like when you'll relate to this, when you've got your own business, there are always so many things that you could do or that you want to do. Or like, I often feel quite creative in the evening. I think because I put my son to bed, I've got time to think. And I'm like, oh, I've got this really good idea. And then I have to stop myself from like actioning it, and I just now write it down and come back to it the next day. But I do find that quite difficult, because naturally I'm like, I just want to do it now. I just want to get into it because I just love what I do. So I think sleep is something that I just need to keep investing in. And yeah,
I definitely relate to that one. Yeah, for sure. Let's finish with a few fun ones. Coffee or matcha?
Do you know what? I've really gone off matcha. It's like coffee, but I'm also having more cacao than coffee these days in the morning. But when I have
cacao,
so nice, isn't it? I absolutely love holy cacao. I'm having that in the morning, and then a couple of mornings a week I'll treat myself to a coffee from my favourite coffee shop. So it feels like a really nice balance. But yeah.
What's your favourite coffee shop?
And it's called Fred and Doug's, and it's on our high street in Epping, where I live.
Nice. Overnight oats or eggs on toast?
Eggs on toast, 100%.
And lastly, what is one word you associate with a healthy gut?
I think nourished. I feel like the word nourished really resonates with me on all levels and is rooted in everything I do. So I think, yeah, when you have a nourished gut, you've got a really healthy gut. And so when you're nourishing your body, just like in the way that you eat and you're eating enough fiber and the plant diversity, I feel like you're naturally nourishing.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you, Jess, for being a guest on the Gut 360 podcast. Where can people find out more about what you do?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a good chat. I feel like we could just talk and talk. There's so many grounds to cover. People can find me over on my Instagram page. So it's Jess_Shand_, or you can find me over on Substack, which I am currently absolutely loving. And yeah, just my name on Substack.
Amazing. Thanks again, Jess. Thank you for your time. And thank you guys for listening to this episode. Make sure you hit follow for weekly episodes every Monday morning. And if you learned something new today, take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram story, send it to your sister, mum, friend, anyone you think this podcast may benefit. I hope you have a gorgeous rest of your week, and I'll be back in your ears next Monday.